Morning, everyone. I'm delighted to welcome you to the third webinar of our 2026 series. My name is Dan Stanke, and I teach in the Water and Wastewater Technology program at Thompson Rivers University. Alongside a team of experts and co-creators, I oversee the online help center for BC Small Water Systems. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that Thompson Rivers University campuses are located on the traditional lands of the Tecumloops to Secwepemc, the Kamloops campus, and the Tahut at the Williams Lake campus within the Secwepemc Ulu, the traditional and unceded territory of the Secwepemc. For a little bit of background, Thompson Rivers University, as part of a partnership, hosts an annual free webinar series and courses designed to provide technical information, resources, and tools to all small water systems owners and operators, including Indigenous small water systems. These webinars, courses, and the website cover topics such as treatment, regulations, operations, maintenance, and water quality monitoring. The Online Help Center is committed to assisting small water systems across BC in implementing a multi-barrier approach to drinking water, ensuring a safe, potable drinking water for their community and in compliance with government regulations. Our free webinars are scheduled every 2 months in 2026. If you are an EOCP certified operator, each webinar will count as 0.1 CEUs towards your certification. Upon completion of the webinar, participants will receive a certificate which can be submitted to EOCP. We also invite you to try out our online free courses designed to educate water system operators. So for today's webinar, it's going to be a 1-hour presentation followed by a 30-minute Q&A session. If any questions arise during the presentation, please note them in the chat section and we will address them afterwards. Our topic today is an introduction to the BC Dam Safety Program, and it is going to be presented by Kim Organ. Kim is a passionate educator and training professional with over 25 years of experience helping others learn and grow. She spent 22 years as a teacher, leading professional development for fellow educators, followed by a role as a training coordinator in industry, where she as an assessment developer with the BC Ministry of Education. Kim holds a combined Bachelor of Arts in Education from the University of Lethbridge. She has a postgrad certificate in special education and assessment, and recently completed an industrial supervisor certificate with CanScott. She is based in Cranbrook. Kim is a proud mom of 2 young adults and enjoys British comedies, event planning, long walks with her golden retriever, and competitive fantasy baseball with her family. Her warm, approachable style makes her a trusted and engaging instructor. So Kim, I am going to hand over the reins to you.
Thanks, Dan.
If I can figure out how to do it. And of course, I'm having trouble doing it.
Of course, that's no problem. We've got, is everyone able to see my screen?
Kim, I think you're already presenter.
Perfect. All right, so we'll just roll with it then. Thanks everyone for having me here today. I really appreciate that warm introduction, Dan. Thank you. I'm really excited to be joining you from the Cranbrook area, the traditional lands of the Ktunaxa people. Today, I would like to give you a bit of an overview about the Dam Safety Program, let you know how our program came to be, how we support the dam safety regulation here in BC, Then we'll take a look at an overview of earthen dams. I want to give you a taste of some of the training that we can provide for your teams. And then we'll look at tools and resources that are available through the BC Dam Safety Program. I want to thank the Small Water Systems Online Help Center. This is a great resource, and I appreciate that we have this available to us here in BC. But I also want to acknowledge that in no way does the completion of this course or viewing the content presented provide you with all the necessary skills or knowledge criteria required to properly inspect and maintain a dam to reasonably safe standards. But we can get you on your way anyway. So let's take a look at the overview of the BC Dam Safety Program. Our program, generally there's 4 parties that work within this program that are involved in dam safety. Together they ensure the safety of the dam site, the community that surrounds the dam, and the safety of the general public. As regulators, that includes the BC Dam Safety Program, which is the team that I am part of under the Ministry of Water, Land and Resource Stewardship. And that includes BC Dam Safety Officers who are applying the BC Dam Safety Regulation. Regulators also include those who apply the Water Sustainability Act and issue water licenses. The Dam Safety Program ensures that owners of licensed dams under the Water Sustainability Act operate their dams in a safe manner in accordance with the BC Dam Safety Regulation. Our team acts as a provincial regulator for dam safety, and our program has 4 pillars that focus on safety and compliance. We provide education and awareness. We want to make sure we have opportunities for dam owners and the public to learn more about how dams benefit the province, how they can be run safely, and how to keep ourselves and each other safe when we're working and playing around dams. Our program focuses on running workshops throughout the province on an annual basis. The program also develops and publishes various resources and documentation for dam owners, operators, and the general public. The prevention, compliance, and enforcement and emergency preparedness and response pillars all fall under the responsibility of the dam safety officers, and I'll talk a little bit more about those as we go. The BC Dam Safety Team is comprised of a small group of people who are spread throughout the province. Our dam safety officers have a wide variety of backgrounds in civil engineering, hydrological engineering. We have environmental specialists, mining and geological engineers, education professionals, safety project managers, and compliance specialists. We like to see ourselves as a guide on the side. We know that our primary function is to ensure the safety of dams and ensure that dams are compliant with our regulation. But we don't want dam owners and operators to feel that they can't reach out. We don't want anyone to be fearing being labeled as non-compliant. We want everyone to know that we're here as a resource. If there are questions or concerns, if something's happening at your dam site and you're concerned, we want you to be able to reach out and ask questions so that we can help you access the best information and best practices to maintain a safe dam. So we encourage everyone to make note of our generic mailbox, dam.safety@gov.bc.ca. This is an email address that is monitored 7 days a week for emergency emails as well as questions and concerns. There's always a dam safety officer keeping an eye on this, and they will send your email to the concerned party, whoever it needs to go to. They'll make sure you get the answers that you need. You can also reach me through this email. So if you're interested in getting training for your team, please make note of this email as well. The BC Dam Safety Program does perform audits. This falls under our compliance and prevention pillars. Audits are not inspections. As a regulator, dam safety officers cannot provide inspections. However, an audit does support dam owners in identifying issues that will turn up on an inspection. They also help dam owners interpret the regulation and understand what needs to be addressed to be considered compliant. Audits help ensure that dam owners understand their obligations. They can help determine if a dam is compliant and provide advice and support for dam owners to fix any compliance issues. Dam safety officers will also recommend uncooperative dam owners or chronic non-compliance for penalties if required. Audits are conducted regularly. So if you have a dam classified as significant or high, this would be every 10 years. If your dam is considered high or extreme consequence classification, it would be every 5 years. And then dams are looked at on a priority basis after that. So this is our dam audit season coming up. It's a good chance for dam safety officers to get out in the field. So they tend to target dams that have had either issues in the past or have had concerned dam owners wanting to have some extra support, or if the dam has recently changed hands. Lots of times we have new dam owners who have either inherited or purchased land that has a dam on it, and they need more information. So we try to prioritize those dams that are in need or have been experiencing issues above those that are running smoothly. Within our pillars of emergency preparedness, prevention, and compliance, we also are an authority to accept a number of different documents. And I have a number of them listed here for you. Really, the intention of this is to ensure that dam owners are dotting I's, crossing T's, and considering all potential hazards. Oftentimes we don't know what we don't know, and as dam safety officers, our team likes to help dam owners understand what they don't know and understand where they can go to reference that information. So when documents are sent in for acceptance, it's dam safety officers' responsibility to go through that document, make sure that everything that's necessary is included, and then to make recommendations for areas that need to be revised and improved upon. So sometimes a document gets sent back. That's an opportunity to make improvements and then resubmit for acceptance. It is meant to be a back and forth and a chance to work towards best practices. Also, under our pillars of compliance and prevention, as well as emergency preparedness, our dam safety officers work to compile a dam inventory. So they have a registry of dams that includes contact information, the use of the dam, compliance issues, records of rehabilitations and repairs. And this is maintained throughout the province. Our dam safety officers share that responsibility, although they often focus on geographical areas in order to maintain some consistency and build some relationship with dam owners. However, we have seen some shuffling in the last few months, and I will talk more about that in a few slides. In BC, we have more than 1,900 active dams that are regulated under the Water Sustainability Act. Regulated dams require a water license issued under the Act and must meet the requirements specified in dam safety regulation. The number of regulated dams increased in February of 2016 when the Water Sustainability Act was implemented, bringing an unknown number of groundwater-filled storage structures under license. I'm going to speak a little bit about that change, but it's important to know that we saw a lot of fluctuation, and we still have a number of unknown dams in the province that have either been abandoned or built without permission, that we work actively with either new dam owners or people who have found a dam on their property to try and help them understand how to keep themselves and their families and communities safe around those dams. Here you can see a breakdown of regulated dams in BC. We've broken this down by consequence classification. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment, but you can see that by far our low and significant dams are the most numerous. Here is a closer look at the South region. Previously, our program was split into provincial and regional dam safety officers. So our provincial dam safety officers would look at hydroelectric dams and large complex structures, whereas regional officers supported the smaller dams that maybe had fewer consequences if there was a failure. But our team has been reorganized into a provincial model. And so now we don't always have a dam safety officer in the vicinity of dams. So if you take a look at this map, there is a star, so DSO contact location. So we have a few DSOs throughout the province, but they obviously cannot get, we don't have a dam safety officer everywhere that we have a dam. And I'll just show you the other maps. Take a look there. So as a result, we have a few dam safety officers who travel a significant amount to do their audits and support dam owners. And you might find that you have a new dam safety officer now because of our shuffling. We've kind of redistributed portfolios, and as a result, we have new relationships being formed between dam owners and dam safety officers. We encourage you to reach out. If you don't know who your dam safety officer is and they haven't gotten in touch with you yet, use that dam.safety@gov.bc.ca email address and reach out and find out who your person is. So now that I've told you a little bit about our team, I'd like to talk about the dam safety regulation, how it came to be, and how it guides our compliance and our program. So the regulation is enforced under the Water Sustainability Act. This is a result of the 2010 Testa-Linden Dam failure. This dam failure caused significant concern around the province. It resulted in an Auditor General's investigation that then created a number of recommendations that eventually led to the creation of our program and our new regulation. So this failure was likely avoidable. A hiker noticed that there was water overflowing across a road they were walking on. They did not recognize that this was a reservoir and a dam. There was no signage up to indicate that it was a reservoir and dam. And as a result, they reported to a tourist booth that a road they were walking on was, potentially going to be washed out. At the time, there was a lot of high water in the area. Many roads were in danger from rivers, lakes, and streams. Because this was a backcountry road, not a primary transportation route, not even secondary or tertiary, it was put on the back burner. By the time the information made it to dam safety, the dam was breaching and there was nothing that could be done to stop it. Another concern that was noted with this situation was that the dam owner had noted structural concerns over a number of inspections, but had not rehabilitated or repaired the dam. And the dam was underclassified as a low consequence dam. An enormous amount of debris was sent down through several vineyards and orchards and ended up destroying 5 homes. There was a potential for loss of life in this situation that was not considered under the past regulation. The breach occurred at 3 p.m. in the afternoon, and thankfully most people were not home. Those that were home heard the rushing water and were able to escape to high ground in time. The inundation mapping and consequence classification did not take into account the elevation change or the torrent of debris that was going to accompany the water if a breach occurred. As a result of the investigation and the recommendations, a new guideline, a new dam safety regulation was brought under the Water Sustainability Act, and it was created to improve consistency with the Canadian Dam Association guidelines and to strengthen the requirements for improved public safety. This regulation can be found on our website. It is a living document as it is a legislated document. So we recommend that you make a link to this website rather than printing it out, as things can change. But we do have a link to that, so you can call it up fairly easily. The regulation is a document that sets out best practices for design, operation and maintenance, decommissioning and removal of dams. As I mentioned, it came into effect in 2016. And I'd like to just walk through the different parts of the regulation so we can understand how it covers dam safety and how it affects our day-to-day operations. So part 1 of the regulation provides definitions and interpretation so that we're all clear on what a dam is and which dams are considered regulated. So in BC, we have a few different terms. We have minor dams, we have low, significant, high, very high, extreme, consequence dams. We have unregulated dams and unauthorized dams. These are all terms that you're going to hear when you're working in and around the dam industry. So when we're discussing unregulated dams, those are dams that are do not meet the dimensions and the consequence classification to have the regulation applied to them. So we're looking at dams that are less than 7.5 meters in height. They store 10,000 cubic meters or less in their reservoir. And so these dams are considered unregulated, but they are licensed and they are authorized, and owners are required to review their consequence classification to ensure that they keep that unregulated designation. Your consequence classification can change without any actions on your part. So we do require dam owners to always be aware of that. When we're talking about unauthorized dams, those are dams that were built without a water license and that have not been brought to the attention of the dam safety team. They are unauthorized, they're unknown to us, and they're not being regulated. They could be of various sizes with various amounts in storage. Part 2 of our regulations then take a look at the dam failure consequence classification. So we've looking at our dimensions, we talk about the height of the dam, the amount of water that's stored behind the dam, and that helps determine the size of the dam and how much of the regulation will apply. And I do have a graphic for that in a moment. But part 2 first takes us through the 5 main obligations for dam owners. That is first to determine that failure consequence classification and to provide some evidence for that classification. And then to annually review the consequence classification and document that review and submitting any changes to the dam safety officer. Dam owners also need to comply with all applicable parts of the regulation. They need to ensure proper operating conditions and prevent unauthorized operations of their dam. That can be kind of broken down through part 3, where we look at sections 8 through 12. These will apply to dams that are classified as significant or higher. Low classification dams are exempt from part 3. And I will take you through that a little bit more closely once I go through the parts of the regulation. But dam owners are required to prepare, review, and update an operation, maintenance, and surveillance plan, as well as a dam emergency plan. And again, as I mentioned, this is not required for a low consequence dam. They need to submit dam information to local authorities, identify their emergency contacts, and include proper signage on dams. So any dam that is on Crown land has signage requirements regulated to them. If your dam is on private property, we strongly recommend that you have proper signage. The more eyes you have on your dam, the more people who can report issues, and the more you can help keep people safe around your dam. It just is a win-win for everyone. The part 3 also looks at construction and rehabilitation. This is in sections 12 through 17, where we look at regular maintenance, what is considered maintenance, how to respond to a hazardous situation, when authorization is required before completing an alteration, an improvement, or a replacement of a dam component. And then also authorizations for removing, decommissioning, deactivating, or stopping dam operations. Of course, hazardous situations are outside of that. They have their own section that I will look at in a second. But all of these actions have timelines where planning needs to be in place, and we need to provide information to dam safety officers beforehand, make sure that everything's been considered, that work is going to be completed by qualified professional engineers, and that the work was completed safely and the outcomes were achieved. So we do have in the regulation timelines laid out. Part 3 also looks at emergency response. So this is preparing of a dam emergency plan that addresses all hazardous situations. It guides dam owners in how to respond to a hazardous condition and how to report hazardous conditions to dam safety officers. There's also information in section 18 through 21 on conducting site surveillance. How often that site surveillance needs to be conducted depends on the consequence classification, as well as testing outlet facilities, spillway gates, all mechanical components of a dam, how to and when to install instrumentation, and how to report that to dam safety officer. The conduction of dam safety reviews and reporting those to the dam safety officer as well. Again, not required for low or significant consequence dams. And then the submission of required records as requested by a dam safety officer is all covered in part 3. There are 2 lesser used parts of the regulation. Part 4 lays out how the government will communicate and work with multiple dam owners on one dam. So we can have more than one water license on a reservoir and on a dam. And as a result, there is a structure for how dam owners will be communicated with and how we would name a principal dam owner in that situation. There's also provisions for how to maintain your records, how to gain advice from independent experts, and Division 4 of Part 4 lays out any offenses or penalties that could be applied in the event of chronic noncompliance. Part 5 looks at sort of a grandfather clause. So when our new regulation came into play in 2016, we had dams that were in the middle of being constructed, decommissioned, repaired or rehabilitated. And so Part 5 just guided dam safety officers and dam owners through the change in regulation and just made sure that work was able to continue for those folks. So that part's not used very often or referred to very often anymore. I have mentioned a number of times the consequence classification of dams, and this was a big piece of the Auditor General's recommendations for our dam regulation. So when we classify the failure consequence of a dam, we look at the dam's dimensions, and then we look at the dam failure consequences. Those 2 pieces together will determine what the how much the regulation will apply for a dam owner and what their responsibilities will be. So in the term of dimensions, what's important? Well, we always look at the dam height and the impounded volume of water in the reservoir. Particularly, we focus on the live storage. So this image illustrates a cross-section of a dam and shows where the height of a dam is measured. This is laid out in section 1 of the regulation. So dam height is always taken from the crest to the lowest point on the downstream toe of the dam. It could be the stream bed, the existing stream bed. If the dam was built across the stream, it could be the existing valley floor. So it's always the lowest point on the downstream side of the dam. And then when we look at the water, we're talking about live storage. So we're talking about water that would escape if the dam was removed. So in this situation, we have a lay of the land that is on an incline towards the dam. So we would have some dead storage here. If the dam was removed, there would be some water that remains and doesn't escape. That's considered dead storage. All of the water that would escape is the impounded volume or the live storage, and that is the capacity that we are discussing when we determine if a dam should be regulated. So that information, the dam height and the live storage, is then placed on a graph. And we take a look at the matrix to see where the dam would fall. So I'm just going to zoom in a little bit here because it can be difficult to see that. So what we have is that 10,000 or less cubic meters of storage and the 7.5 meters in height or less. So this orange section is what we call a minor dam. It's exempt from the regulation. It is an authorized dam, but it is not going to have the dam safety regulation applied to it unless this dam is built in such a way that a failure of the dam would cause significant consequences. And we'll talk about that in a moment. But there is always the opportunity for our water comptroller to override this orange box based on the consequence classification of the dam. So if you could imagine a dam that's built and then someone builds their house immediately below it, suddenly we have permanent residents that is now in danger of a dam breach. And depending on the amount of water and the way the water would flow and the speed, what it will pick up as it travels, that needs to be considered. And so we do have potential that a minor dam could become a low consequence dam or higher, depending on those consequences. Outside of the 7.5 meters in height and the 10,000 cubic meter live storage capacity, we have this area for low consequence classification. So these are dams that fall below this dashed line. So they're less than a certain height, they have less capacity, they're going to require less regulation to maintain a safe dam. And then above that dashed line, we have where the entire regulation is going to apply. So just to help you understand that a little bit better, I'm just going to kind of give you a different view of that same graphic. So any dam will be regulated if it's in the yellow area. So kind of the border of this green unregulated dam area and the yellow, if I kind of give you a visualization of this, imagine a 1 hectare reservoir, 100 meters by 100 meters with the average depth of 1 meter deep. And that would be the threshold of the green and yellow areas. And then we have this darker yellow area where we have the entire regulation apply. And this is based, again, on that consequence classification. And I just want to show you, I'm just going to jump ahead a slide here. So we have a severity for our consequence classifications. We start off with low. And so these are dams in that pale yellow section of the visual. And then significant, high, very high, and extreme. And as we move through these consequence classifications, we see more responsibilities are being placed on the dam owner because there are more consequences if there is a failure with that dam. We always consider when we're doing our consequence classification, we always start with the population at risk. Is it a temporary population? Could it just be people hiking through the area? Could it be a campground that's only operated during a few months each year? Is it a permanent structure where people work every day? Is it a permanent structure where people live 24 hours a day? So, you know, the population at risk is considered. And then we look at the potential for loss of life with that structure, with what might be in the path of the dam. After that, we consider environmental and cultural values, and then infrastructure and economics. So if there are any losses that fall into these categories, that will help guide a dam owner in determining their classification. consequence classification. And when we're talking about consequence of failure, we need to be really clear. Consequences of failure are any losses or damages that are caused by the failure of a dam. And a failure does not mean that it is a total collapse of a dam. A failure is any uncontrolled release of all or part of the water impounded by the dam, whether it's a collapse of the embankment or a gate was partially opened when no one expected a spillway gate to be open and some water has escaped. The dam could still be operational, but a failure has occurred. And whatever consequences come from that failure is the responsibility of a dam owner. And so that's why we need to be really transparent and clear up front of what those consequences can be so that we can mitigate those risks as much as possible. We also need to consider impacts on the downstream and upstream area of a dam resulting from a failure. So 90% of the time we look downstream. We want to see where the water is going, what will it impact as it travels. But we also have to consider upstream. Is that reservoir the only drinking water source for a community? If that water is gone, is there a ranch that is in danger of not being able to water their cattle? So there's upstream consequences. Could that reservoir be a very popular place for people to build their homes along the shore, and suddenly with the water dropping and the dam failing, we now have banks caving in and homes are now at risk. So there could be upstream consequences that do need to be considered, and that's why we always encourage a qualified professional to support dam owners in setting their consequences of failure. Finally, the term consequences is going to refer to damage exceeding that which would have occurred in a same natural event or conditions had the dam not failed. So we call these incremental consequences. And the way I think of it is here in my hometown, every spring during freshet, we have some low-level flooding. We have a stream that runs through town, and the homes along the stream all have sump pumps, and they all experience some amount of water on their property and in their basements. Upstream, Cranbrook, we have a dam on this stream, and if that dam was to fail during that time, any of the water that's normally there is not the responsibility of the dam owner. Anything that's over and above that incremental consequence, that is where we're talking about a responsibility that lies with a dam owner. So it's also important to understand the geography and the typical seasonal flooding and situations that happen downstream from your dam. So all of these things are taken into consideration, and what we do is we end up creating a consequence classification for a dam. And that severity is going to be determined by any losses that are incurred in the event of a failure. And while we start with loss of life, it's not the determining factor. Any losses, depending on where they fall on the scale, will determine, the highest one will determine the consequence. So if there are environmental and cultural values that could be or would be destroyed in the event of a failure, that is where we're going to place the consequence classification. So what we have is a regulation table that walks through the different dam classifications. So we have low through significant, high. The next page would have very high and extreme. We start with the population at risk. If there is no population below this dam, maybe some event for misadventure, maybe there's potential for hikers to be walking to the area, but no one lives there. No one is camping there. It's not a popular site that everyone's visiting. There's no loss of life. There's no possibility for loss of life other than an unforeseeable misadventure. The minimal or short-term losses are all the losses would be short-term. They would be repairable. We could rehabilitate an area or a species. There aren't any sites with significant cultural value that would be destroyed. And then looking at infrastructure and economics, there would be minimal economic losses that would be limited possibly to the dam owner's property alone, but no pre-existing potential for development within the dam inundation zone. So there's no highways or anything like that that are being affected. This is what gives us a low consequence classification. I did mention earlier that consequences can change, and we do require dam owners to visit this yearly and consider any changes to the population living below the dam, the environmental situations surrounding the dam, any infrastructure that's been built or economic ventures that have been taken up. Those can all happen outside of a dam owner's control, but they are going to affect the consequence classification. This table, here's the second page of the table. We go through very specific vocabulary to determine classification. So we're using significant, and we're using major loss or deterioration, critical fisheries versus, let's flip back a page here, versus rare or endangered species. So the terminology changes, and we provide a guide for dam owners that will walk you through this vocabulary and help you understand what is significant, what's the difference between critical and endangered, and just to support dam owners with determining this classification level and making sure they're as accurate as possible. So who's responsible for performing this consequence classification? So it does fall on a dam owner to ensure that this is completed. We do recommend that a dam break or an inundation study is completed by a qualified engineer to give you the most information possible in the event of a failure of your dam. But it is possible to determine the consequence classification of a dam without a qualified professional if you're going to err on the conservative side. If a dam owner is going to raise themselves to significant or higher to make sure that they're mitigating all risks, it's potential that they've rated their dam too high on that scale, but it's sort of a better safe than sorry. If you're going to err on the side of caution, we are okay with not having a qualified professional help you determine that classification. However, the more detailed and accurate your evidence for this classification is, the more helpful it will be for you down the road. So it definitely is best practice to have a professional help you determine your consequence classification. And again, this is reviewed annually. Dam owners are required to do an annual inspection. So this redetermination could be included in that inspection. So the inspection report could contain a section for the redetermination where the dam owner fills in they've considered their consequence classification. They can justify that it's staying the same or justify that it needs to be changed. And it's put into that report so that when the report's submitted to a dam safety officer, they've also ticked the box of the annual redetermination. It's also a helpful way to not forget that this needs to be done. And then just an aside or an extra here, that a dam safety officer can order that a consequence classification be reviewed if a qualified professional wasn't used and we're concerned that the consequence classification isn't high enough, or it becomes out of date, or appears to be inappropriate due to development near the dam site. For those of you who haven't seen one before, this is an example of a breach flow estimate or a flood map. These are certainly helpful in determining what infrastructures could be affected by a dam breach, but they also can provide you with depth and velocity of possible areas of bulking and debris flows. They can be very informative and provide clear rationale and justification for a consequence classification level as well as for the emergency plans you're going to put in place in your dam emergency planning document. So consequence classification considers two types of failure. And what we have are the sunny day failure, where your dam is running, being operated as usual. Everything seems to be working just fine, and suddenly you lose a component of your dam, or you have a problem with your embankment and you have a breach. So these are unforeseeable events that happen when your dam is running under expected conditions. Flood-induced failures typically have an increase in reservoir level. Where there's more water in the system, there's more at risk because of that. They can be caused, the failure is caused by the flood-induced situation, whereas on a sunny day failure, it could just be the lifetime of the dam, or a symptom that was growing that wasn't yet addressed. So when an inundation study is done and a consequence classification is set, both of these scenarios are planned for. By planning for a flood-induced failure, you are now planning for your worst case scenario, the most amount of water that could be in that system. Oftentimes we're looking at 500-year to 1,000-year floods. This information can be so helpful to dam owners in planning their safety protocols. Some other factors to consider outside of the 100 or 200 or 1,000-year events, you need to consider the time of year that this could be happening and what other contributing factors could be in place. So, for example, inflow diversions could be left open, especially in the springtime and during freshet. You're trying to capture storage for irrigation. Those valves are wide open, and sometimes we can't get to them quickly enough. So what's the worst case scenario that can cause? Or you have release valves that are often left closed because we're typically not irrigating yet while the snow is melting and it's still the rainy season. So with all those valves closed, how much more water is in the system? What's the potential fallout from that? During freshet, we have logs and debris that can jam up and cause all types of flooding above a dam that just create more water in the system. And if you add on to that it's a 100-year event or a 500-year event, that's even more water. Situations may not be normal. So in an event like these, you need to expect that there could be a domino effect. So a debris flow could become a risk as a river or a lake, as the banks become saturated, and suddenly through the freshet season, they become susceptible to rapid erosion. And so we have now the concern of a debris flow that could affect people downstream of the dam. So all these factors have to be considered, and that's why we strongly suggest using a qualified professional engineer to help you with this determination, so that you can bring all of these factors together into an inundation plan that lets you set an accurate and appropriate classification level. Just a few rules of thumb. We've got, if it's a sole source of drinking water, right away your classification is going to be high or greater. If there's a railroad below your dam, you're going to automatically be very high. Railroads are deemed critical infrastructure in Canada. So we have Schedule 2 that lays out responsibilities for dam owners. So in these situations, we've got, we could have a low consequence dam where there's no loss of life, no loss of economic or cultural values. And suddenly someone builds a home below your dam. And so now that dam has been reclassified as high. And so that changes the responsibility of the dam owner from doing quarterly site surveillance to now having to do weekly site surveillance. From having to do the quarterly now to do weekly site surveillance. It now is no longer exempt from an OMS and a DEP review, operation, maintenance, and surveillance plan, and a dam emergency plan. Now we have that happening and being reviewed every 10 years. So consequence classification is a really big part of our regulation, and it's often quite confusing and frustrating for dam owners. We encourage you to reach out and ask questions so that you have better understanding of how it's being applied and how it affects you. Just want to show you a few of the things that I would talk about if you were to bring in dam safety training for your surveillance and maintenance teams. So again, the training I provide does not provide you with the necessary skills and knowledge criteria required, but what it does is it helps you understand what you don't know so that you know when you should be asking for help and that you feel confident in asking for that support. In BC, a dam is defined as any man-made barrier constructed for the purpose of storing water. And so we provide some background on what dams are in BC, from a small embankment dam on a ranch to the large BC hydro facilities. This is WAC Bennett Dam that provides 30% of BC's power. So both dams fall under the regulation. They're just administered differently due to their size and consequence classification. So then what we would do is we would take your team through the common terminology of an embankment dam or a concrete dam, depending on what your team is working with and responsible for. And what we do is we try to make sure that everyone has the same vocabulary, the same terminology, so that when you're reporting a concern at a dam site, you are using the correct terminology so that the person you report to understands what you're saying. The person they report to understands. We're kind of all speaking the same language. And then we walk through the different components. We talk about how they're named. So oftentimes there's a lot of confusion about abutments. When we say left versus right, we're always facing downstream. We always clarify things like that so that the person who's doing the surveillance can report accurately. But then we also talk about main failure modes for each component. So if it is a concrete dam, we're looking at abutments as a major component that can fail. If we're talking about embankment dams, then we're going to talk about seepage along the abutments and what that looks like. And so we go through the different components of a dam, identifying what is healthy and what isn't, what sort of things. So for example, for slope, downstream slopes are subject to seepage, erosion, and animals burrowing, right? So we talk about what that looks like, how to mitigate those issues, and just try to provide your team with a lot of visual references so that oftentimes we only see the dam that we work on, and we don't understand the components of the dam and how they work together. And as a result, we don't have a kind of an understanding of best practices and why those are the best practices. So by giving your team lots of visuals and examples, try to broaden that knowledge so they feel more confident in saying, yeah, like what I'm seeing is concerning. I want to get another pair of eyes on this situation. So we walk through the different components, try to give your team a good understanding of what their dam looks like, how those components compare, and then what the common deficiencies of each component can be. We walk through the failure modes, most common failure modes for embankment dams or concrete dams as your situation is what's appropriate for your situation. And then we take a look at how to ensure our team can identify these. What are the external erosion symptoms that we're watching for? We walk through all sorts of deficiencies, explaining the causes, trying to give people some background on why it's happening. Lots of times we have these aging dams that we didn't build, and we know so little about what's inside of them, and so understanding what vertical displacement can mean and why it's such a scary thing for the structural stability of a dam really can empower a team in saying, I saw these cracks, I measured them last week, I've measured them again this week, this is what's changing. Instead of saying, I'm not sure if it's a problem, just try to build that confidence in what reporting what we see, how to report it, how to measure it, just those best practices. We spend some time watching videos on understanding what phreatic line is and how it is affected by different situations. So like the vertical displacement, but also animals. How does an animal den change how water travels through a dam? We work through all of those types of scenarios. Lots of visuals, lots of diagrams. Just really want to give your team the best background knowledge possible when moving into when they go out into the field. We talk about the difference between surveillance and inspection, who can perform which, what's the best way of performing each one. And this is where we start to then look at the tools that our team can provide as part of our education and awareness pillar. So dam safety maintenance systems really need to have sound planning. They need follow through on their implementation and then evaluation on whether or not that implementation is meeting standards. So we can walk teams through setting up a dam safety maintenance system. On our website, we have numerous technical resources and educational resources that can be helpful. I'm just going to see if this will let me copy. I'm just dropping into the chat our website. Oh, it doesn't look like, that doesn't look like a link to me. I was hoping I could just drop links in here. My apologies. I will see if I can troubleshoot that when we're doing our Q&A. But our dam safety website, if you search Province of BC Dam Safety, you'll find our webpage. It looks like this. There's just so many resources available that we maintain so that you have the best practices at your fingertips. We have information sheets that be used maybe as a tailgate for a team. Thank you, Natasha. I appreciate you throwing that in the chat for me. We have information sheets that are kind of quick guides. We have guidance documents that are quite in depth on here, the downstream consequence of failure classification interpretation guide. This is the one that I mentioned that walks you through your redetermination and all of that language. We really want to be transparent. So we put our dam audit checklist right on there so you can see what is going to be checked when a dam safety officer arrives for an audit. We really want to be upfront, transparent, and helpful. We also offer surveillance templates and annual inspection templates. These are fully editable, so you can delete out components that don't apply to your dam. You can add things in. So if there's been seepage along the toe of the dam and you want extra measurements taken and time spent there, you can add that section into your checklist. This is meant to be a guide that you can then customize to make your surveillance and inspection as efficient and effective as possible. If I had to pick two resources, these are the two that I would pick. Our safety pocketbook, quick reference guide. It's sized so it can fit in the back pocket of your jeans or inside pocket of your jacket. Throw it in the glove box of your field vehicle. It has lots of those same diagrams that I include in training, and then photographs. So if someone believes they see something and want to compare what they see, that's a great in-field guide. And then the inspections and maintenance of small dams walks through all sorts of deficiencies and lets you know, this is something you can monitor. This is something you need a qualified professional for immediately, just to kind of give your team some confidence in addressing any deficiencies that might be cropping up at your dam site. These are both in the tech section of our webpage. And then we have lots of tools you can share with your teams, links to ASDSO, the Association of State Dam Safety Officials out of the states, and a number of other state websites, as well as the CDA and other provinces in BC. It really is a global community for dam safety. So I encourage you, if you want a tailgate sheet that you can do a toolbox talk with your team about vegetation, you don't have to take one off of our website. You can take one off of an American website. The best practices really are best practices, and the dam safety community kind of shares a lot. We're always kind of supporting each other. In fact, Canadian experts are used around the world on many international dam safety review teams. So we have a really good foundation here. I'm hoping that I'm kind of coming to the right time here. We're towards the end of the session. I wanted to share this link with you folks. So if you feel comfortable using your device and scanning the QR code, it will take you to a training request form that you can bookmark. If down the road you would like some training for your team, that's something that if you were to fill out the form, I'd reach out to you through email and we could discuss what your needs might be. And then I don't think this link is going to work because it didn't work last time, but off of our website, there is an education and training page that I post any upcoming training. And yeah, so I'll need Natasha's help again with this one. But I post any upcoming training. So for example, in September, I'm leading 2 sessions for BC WWA. Both sessions offer credits for EOCP. And so if you wanted to learn more about surveillance and maintenance or the dam safety management systems, I'm doing one of each of those in September. I placed the links on our website. You can also find them on BCWWA's website. And as those things come up, I try to maintain the page so that you can find training opportunities. And I think, Dan, I'm hoping I've used up my hour and we're kind of at a spot now where we can look at some questions.
Yeah, that worked out just perfectly. Thank you, Kim.
Oh,
so yeah, if anybody has any questions, please put them in the chat and we can work towards getting some expert answers from our expert, Kim. The first question was, can we get a copy of the presentation for future reference? And yes, the slides and the video will be posted on the Online Help Center website in the next couple of days.
I'm always an over talker, so there's about 25 more slides in there that I didn't get to today that'll be bonus content when you come back and take it off of the website.
All right, do we have any more questions out there?
So much regulation talk, it's kind of overwhelming. I do encourage you to save that dam.safety@gov.bc.ca email address. So if questions do pop up, you can always send your questions in.
Brian asks, just curious if the dam inventory was available on the website.
The dam inventory. I'm not sure what you mean by inventory. Our surveillance and inspection pages are available. The consequence classification guides are all available. Yeah, so maybe if you can, Brian, maybe provide a little bit more information on what you mean by inventory, I can be more helpful.
Okay, we have Joey asking, I support First Nations communities. One of them has a dam. Can dam safety support these communities as well?
Yeah, so our first mandate is to dam owners. So we can, as a First Nation community, they are a dam owner, so we can support the council in understanding implications for the dam or the regulations that apply to the dam. We can support any teams that do the surveillance and maintenance and providing some training with that. We are in the process of developing training for the general public and just understanding the benefits and risks associated with dams. That's not quite complete at the moment, but definitely, Joey, I'd suggest sending me an email or doing the request form, training request form. I'll put that QR back up, and then maybe I can maybe understand a little bit more in depth of what you'd like, and we can come up with some supports. Thanks for the question.
Next, we have Victor, who asks, could the Similkameen get a dam built as a water reservoir?
Victor, I can't answer that. I'm sorry. I know so much about the regulation, but I'm not on the water licensing side. If you were to send a question in with your email address to our dam.safety email address, I can help forward your question to the right person to get you an answer for that.
And Victor asks, are these brochures available as downloadable content?
Yeah, absolutely. Everything we have on our website is PDF, so you should be able to download and print. And then there are a few that are editable, so they would download as a Word doc or an Excel sheet that you can edit yourself. So we try to keep the file sizes down. If you experience difficulties, maybe you're rural and your bandwidth can't help handle some of the bigger documents, again, send me an email and we'll figure out a way to get you what you need.
All right, do we have any more questions? Caden asks, does DFO communicate with you about dams in BC? Mostly about the documentation side.
DFO. Forestry, I'm wondering. I'm not sure DFO. Who that
Fisheries and Oceans, I believe.
Oh, okay. Not with me, possibly with dam safety officers if there was some overlap in, you know, sometimes when we're doing our consultation with First Nations or if there's overlap with resources along the coast, there could be some conversation there. I honestly don't know how much that actually happens. We're pretty kind of siloed in our roles in government. But again, Caden, if you want to find out some more information, send me an email. I'll direct it to one of our senior dam safety officers and get you that information. Thank you.
All right, we have Garrett asking, if a dam has been red flagged pending a structural report, is it possible to lower the spillway to reduce the risk of failure?
So you can always reduce or lower your reservoir level. Sometimes that's with the use of your spillway or low level outlet. Sometimes you need to bring in pump trucks. We often recommend that. As far as lowering the spillway itself, that's likely going to be an invasive process where you're going to have to dig into the dam. So that's going to require a lot of planning with a qualified professional engineer and approvals through the dam safety officers. We are always, actually one of the most common rehabilitations we're seeing is increasing spillway capacity and making sure that our spillways are effective in reducing reservoir as quickly and safely as possible. So I would think that yes, lowering a spillway or increasing its capacity would be beneficial, but it's something that's going to take a lot of planning, a lot of professional consultation, and definitely approvals from your dam safety officer.
Okay, I have a question up here from Nick, but it appears to be the same question that was previously asked. So I'll ask Natasha just to double check that. And if you have any more questions, please pass them on. Not seeing anyone come up here. Oh, okay, here we go. Nick asks, are we able to look up individual dam release parameters? i.e. the Wesley Dam on Maple Lake, which is headwaters to the Shuswap water system, in particular during freshet?
So for some dams, yes, and for some, no. I have to say that our registry is hit and miss as it's not very old, and we're working on gathering all that information. Some dam owners are very upfront and are willing to share all that information. All you need to do is contact them, and starting with dam safety officer to find out that contact information. That's something that we can potentially help with. Uh, I think um, I think purpose is going to maybe play into that a little bit as well. So, some dam owners, um, it's a huge responsibility maintaining the safety of the environment and the people around your dam, and so some are a little more nervous about sharing information up front. So there maybe needs to be some relationship building there a little bit. But yeah, generally we can get that kind of information for particular dams. It just takes sometimes a little bit of time.
All right, next we have Victor asking, we use a certified QEP personnel. Are they eligible to fill in permits and monitor these dams for a municipality?
So if you have a qualified personnel on staff, um, I don't want to overstep. I mean, my instinct is yes, but I'm trying to think of something I don't know that would make it a no. Just I don't want to say yes for sure. I think, Victor, that yes, they can. Um, we have, especially for the lower consequence dams, for low and significant and sometimes high, we have qualified dam owners who maybe aren't engineers, but their expertise and experience over the years, um, they're able to do a lot of the basic everyday work that a qualified professional can do. And in lots of situations, that's appropriate. Um, it's the situations where something new has come along. They don't recognize what's happening, they don't have the experience, and they miss something. So, what we'll often do is for those dam owners and their staff, we'll say, every 3 years you need to bring somebody a second pair of eyes in, just to support that. So my answer I feel is yes, but maybe check with your dam safety officer and make sure there's not something that I'm not aware of. Every dam is unique, and so maybe you want to find out if it is appropriate for your situation.
All right, Dave asks, what are the credentials of the DSO and how do they determine dam risk?
So our DSOs we have a range of engineers and civil experts and safety experts sitting on our dam safety team. We have geological engineers, hydrological engineers, and they act as a team. So every 2 weeks, I know that we have formal meetings where we share and discuss concerns that have been brought forward. So the hydrological DSO is supporting the geological DSO. It really is a team approach. Um, as far as how do they determine dam risk? Well, first of all, um, they they don't determine it. It's a responsibility of a dam owner and a qualified professional, but they review it and they make sure that the standards have been considered. So when they're determining dam risk, they're looking to see that certain parameters and metrics have been considered on the inundation study, that it's been done recently, that it's used best practice guidance that we keep in all of our documents for dam owners to see. So we really have like a list of best practices. They kind of check it off. Then our dam safety officers, after they have that initial degree in engineering or safety, they then go through a dam safety officer designation period. So they're trained by their peers on the team. They go through a number of team audits and site visits. So they're learning, and they gradually take over responsibility. But there, we have a few who come from mining and have worked with dams on mine sites. So we have a wide variety of backgrounds, but it's the team approach that makes sure that everybody has the information they need to do the job safely and appropriately.
Nice. So Sam asks, permits and the transfer of utilities happens.
So it's my understanding that many of our water licenses for storage are long-term licenses. So they're like lifetime of the dam, not lifetime of the person. And so what can happen is you can inherit a dam through family. You can purchase without even necessarily being aware a dam by purchasing land. And so what will happen is once that sale has gone through and everything has been transferred over in the sale, then the ownership of that dam and responsibility of that dam is now transferred to the new owner. So my understanding is it's whichever is earlier. So as soon as, but what we try to do is we try to support a new dam owner in that transition. So if a dam owner is selling land that has a dam and wants dam safety officer to kind of bridge that gap and help inform the person who's purchasing, there can be conversations that can kind of clarify those timelines and support the new dam ownership. We've had a lot of situations where we've had new dam owners who had a hiker or someone in the backcountry find a dam on their property that nobody knew was there. So sometimes it's a surprise. You're a proud parent of a dam.
All right, do we have any more questions? Okay, I don't see any coming up. I want to say thank you to our presenter, Kim. That was a great presentation today. And I want to thank you all for attending today's webinar. Next, you're going to receive a webinar evaluation, and we sincerely welcome your feedback. Your thoughtful and constructive input plays an important role in helping us enhance the quality of the website and ensures that we continue offering the content that is timely, relevant, and responsive to the needs of the small water systems in BC. If you do have any follow-up questions from today's presentation, please email it to the Online Help Center and we will forward those along. A reminder that your CEU certificates will be emailed to you within a day or so. Please ensure that you save them, as we are unable to reissue their certificates. And last but not least, please don't forget to sign up for our next webinar, which is scheduled for July 21st, 2026, where we will talk about asset management for small water systems. Thank you, everybody, for attending. Have a good day.